I mean, I've heard a story of you, and it was roommate at Murfield Secondary Modern when you were first invited to read a passage out loud. Was that a moment for you, or was there something in Shakespeare that evolved over time that really kind of grabbed you and went, this is not only something that speaks to me, this is something I want to do for a living?
It was a huge moment. Well, we had no television. I had quite a poor upbringing. We lived in what was called a one up, one down. One room downstairs, one room upstairs, and my brother and I slept behind a partition in the corner of my parents' bedroom. We had no hot water, no bathroom, no kitchen, there was a toilet which was outside, which became my reading room. Because when you live in one room, if people are listening to the radio, you can't read at the same time. So I would take a candle to the outside toilet and sit there for several hours reading my book or my comic, whatever I had. But it never included Shakespeare, although on the radio I heard a lot of Shakespeare, because in those days Radio 3, the third program, and Radio 4 did a lot of major Shakespearean plays with major actors of the day. I could hear Ralph Richardson, John Gielgud, Donald Wolfe on the radio. But one day in my English class at school, my English teacher, Cecil Dormand, alive and quite well, I spoke to him on the phone about 3 months ago when I wished him happy 92nd birthday. And he handed out these copies of this thing called The Merchant of Venice. And he said, all right, Merchant of Venice, find Act 4, Scene 1, which is the famous trial scene in The Merchant. And he said, all right, Susan, you're Portia, you're the Duke, Patrick, you're Shylock. All right, and he cast the scene, and then he said, all right, start reading. And so we all began to read. And he was a chalk thrower, Mr. Dormand, and he said, no, you idiots! Not to yourselves out loud, this is a play, it's not a poem, it's drama, it's real life, read it out loud. And so for the first time in my life, I spoke Shakespeare out loud. Thank you, Cecily Dormand, for the great privilege that you gave me, because even though I didn't understand, I went to a very non-academic school, a secondary modern school. You'll know what that meant. And I had never ever considered Shakespeare as anything that could interest me whatsoever. And furthermore, when we read it that day, most of the things the character of Shylock said I didn't understand because I didn't know what the words meant. But I could say the words, some of them I mispronounced. But there was a quality about the language. There was a rhythm and a almost musical quality to the words and the tempo of the words in which the script was written that grabbed me instantly. I have no idea why, because I don't recall it grabbing anybody else in my class especially. They all struggled, but it became my passion. And the same man, the same English teacher, put me in a play with adults for the first time. And he also was the person who said to me when I was about to graduate, although graduation is a rather glamorous term for what happened in my school, you just left. Because we didn't take exams or anything like that. We had no qualifications, but we were 15 and school was done. And most of my colleagues went into local industry, into the mining industry, of course, they became coal miners, and a lot of them into the weaving industry, because it's very big, heavy woolen weaving in that neighborhood. And some reason, I don't know how or why, but I was invited to join my local newspaper. And I was a very, very junior, very inexperienced cub reporter. And I remember another reporter started work on the newspaper at the same time as me, and he was a Cambridge graduate. And we became very good friends, although we had nothing in common at all. But language and drama and interaction became more and more important to me. My home life was chaotic and at times even a little dangerous. But the stage, contrary to what most people would expect, I found from the moment I stepped onto it was the safest place I had ever been. For a number of reasons, none of which I knew at the time, but of course, thanks to high-class, expensive therapy in Los Angeles. I know now what was going on. But in a play, there is a beginning and a middle and an end. And it's planned out and rehearsed. So there is no chaos. There are, or there should not be, any surprises. It is all known and predictable. Also, I was not being Patrick Stewart, of whom I didn't have a particularly high opinion. But I was someone else. And I so much more enjoyed being someone else than being Patrick Stewart. And it's something of a confession, but I have to say that I still feel the same way about what I do.
So, I mean, I saw one fantastic interview. I think it was the speech at the Oxford Union when you talked about, was it working on with Trevor Nunn, and you talked about stripping away the layers and being yourself. And I think it was in the part of Leontas, was it?
Yes, it was at Leontas in The Winter's Tale. It wasn't Trevor Nunn.
Ronald Eyre. Ronald Eyre, beg your pardon, but do apologise.
A very wise and brilliant man, and himself a psychiatrist and a theatre director. And he'd asked me to play this role in a play called Winter's Tale. And this character was an utterly repugnant and offensive character. Because of him, his wife died. Because of him, his child died. He hadn't killed. He tried to have his best friend murdered. He was an absolute monster. It was all the cause of jealousy. And Dame Peggy Ashcroft, who I mentioned, said to me one day, "You don't want to play that part? No actor has ever enjoyed playing that part. And everybody hates you. Why would you want to do it?" No, turn it down. So I turned it down. And Ronald Eyre said, "Can I come and talk to you about it?" Okay, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested. It's just a loathsome character. And he said, "Don't be offended if I say that this character is already living inside you. You are Leontes, but perhaps you don't know it. So all I am going to ask you to do is, in the safest possible environment," and I remember he used that word, which was what I'd experienced the first time I stepped on stage, it will be the safest experience, because nothing bad can happen to you, and you will do nothing bad to anyone else. But all of these qualities live inside you. And what we need to do is to open the valve and let them out. Now, I believe that also applies to writing poetry, to novelists, to composing, to painting and sculpting and building buildings. I agreed that I would take the risk. And the reason that I agreed was that Ronald Eyre said to me, "And don't be afraid, because I will stand at your side every moment of this journey. You will not be alone." So I took it on, and indeed it changed almost the way I approached every aspect of my work. But I think when I was young, I didn't think very much of myself. I wasn't clever. I hadn't been to a fancy school. I hadn't done languages or much maths or, chemistry or anything like that. Didn't know anything except what I got out of books. And to accept that there was a world of feeling, experience, and emotion that already lived inside me, that I could use as a means of communication with an audience. I told you I gave long answers to simple questions. any moment you can just do this, and I'll shut up.
They want to hear from you, not me. I'm fairly confident of that.
Well, you can always redirect.